a lot as well, didn't he?
With the first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Draft Show. Adam and I are back again with another Mock the Mock episode. Today we will be going through my personal favorite analyst for college sport is Joel Klatt. So we'll be taking a look at his mock draft one. I always do it. I go 101, and I just want to say 1 point.
The mock draft 101.
I mean, that would be an interesting show. I think that would be good. Pick a player, write his name on a bit of paper.
Just the one player.
Adam, we're here to go through it, pick things we like, choose things that we think are wrong, just an overall sense of it. I think I've got you on board with Joel Klatt now. I think you're kind of leaning towards he kind of knows what he's on about, right? He'll be on there on draft night.
I was concerned where you thought I was on board with or what I was on board with. But yeah, Joel Klatt. No, really like Joel Klatt, actually. He's good. I've watched some of his stuff. And yeah, he'll be there on draft night, obviously, with Rich Eisen and Jeremiah and all that lot. And yeah, I think that he's one of these. I think he comes at it from a slightly different aspect. And I can kind of understand why you like him, because I think you two come at it from the same sort of viewpoint where you watch a lot of the games and maybe watching the tape isn't not important, but like just not quite as important as what the likes of us who don't have the time to watch the games as well. So it kind of I kind of get the why you like him. But yeah, I think I've watched some of his stuff certainly this season, and I think he knows probably a little bit more college football than some of the main guys that do mock drafts. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I suppose you've got the joy of the fact he's a former quarterback. He's done the draft process himself. He was then at a few NFL teams. I'm very surprised that he's never gone into coaching, because he now does an X's and O's show. And if you listen to his podcast, when he talks about why teams win or lose, he'll talk about schemes and plays and designs and things like that. And he's very interesting for the way he analyzes things and looks at things from an on-field perspective as well. So I think you get a lot more from him than just someone who sits at home watching the screen taking notes like some of the other guys, because he's been there and done it himself and had to watch tape and everything before. So yeah, it's good.
I imagine he gets paid very nicely by Fox, and he probably doesn't have to deal with the stress of it. Is probably why.
Yeah, I think he's probably settled where he is, and he's a very family man. So that's probably more important. So let's take a look at the draft. So there is a trade in this one. You can see there in the title.
Do you think they're going to trade? There's a lot of talk about this now. It's building.
We've done our mock draft, and the first thing we said was we think that this could be a potential trade. We said we're not sure whether they'll stick at this point, whether they'll go Abdul Carr, whether they'll go quarterback, whether they'll address quarterback later. So we addressed these kind of things when we looked at it, and now it's when you've got the likes of the Jets, the Giants, the Raiders, that all might want to have the one spot to get their guy after interviews, then it's ideal for Tennessee to move down and accumulate more picks, because they haven't got loads of picks this draft. So they could still get a quarterback and accumulate more picks. So it makes sense for them to be looking at options to move down. Not too far, though. I don't think they want to be moving out of the top 10. So it's got to be one of those top 10 teams that wants to come up and maybe go and get their guy quarterback. If they're higher on Cam Ward or Shador Sanders, then they want to make sure that they get that person and they're not waiting and getting whoever's left, because it is quite polarizing between the two guys and who consensus is number one. So there is likelihood of that happening.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do feel like someone's going to do it. I think they're going to trade out now. I kind of feel like that. It kind of feels like there's been a lot of chat, and it's just getting more and more. And I think the position that they're in, I get the feeling they'd be crazy not to.
Mm-hmm. I think you can see there, Joel Klatt, he's got them trading with the New York Giants. Now, that makes logical sense, as he says that the Giants have already done a lot of homework, a lot of research, shown, and lots of people from the back office were at games and practice and everything for Colorado. So throughout the season, we've seen him throwing the ball with Malik Neighbors when he was in New York. So for the I think it was for when he was doing Heisman stuff. So there's a lot of connection and a lot of homework and everything being done. So it does feel like, as Joel says there, they've vetted this guy and he's their guy. So I can understand why they'd move up for him. He also states that he believes that Shedeur Sanders is the clear number one quarterback in this draft. So if you go and when we've done our quarterback top 10s, we'll talk about them in detail and stuff a bit more. I won't go into too much about what he says about him, but you know where I stand on it. He's been my number one since most of the season. So, I can understand Giants moving up, making sure they do get him, just in case the likes of the Jets or Raiders don't jump them and go and get it. So I don't mind this moving up. I don't think it costs loads to move from 3 to 1. Obviously, there'll be some cost, but that's not a big jump, so I can't see it being overly expensive.
It's not a big jump, but I do feel like it's going to cost quite a bit, really. And I mean, I have said before, I think the idea of drafting a quarterback in this class is not the way forward, but the idea of actually paying up even more to go and get a quarterback in this class, I think is pretty mental. So yeah, I really don't like it at all. I worry for your sanity as a Giants fan, because I genuinely feel so both of these guys, Ward and Sanders, I genuinely think there is a potential that they could become franchise quarterbacks. They do have that in them. However, there is just as much potential that in 3 years' time, whichever teams take them, they're going to be back in this position again. Now, I know that you could probably come out and say that about a lot of quarterbacks, but I feel that's more so this year than many other years. And yeah, it's just a really difficult position that the Giants find themselves in. If they really, it seems like Sanders is the one they want from all the sort of everything that's gone on so far in this offseason. So it kind of makes sense that they would go and make sure they get their guy. I just don't particularly like any of them, to be honest.
Yeah, we've stated plenty of times that the Giants have got to go quarterback. They're not in a position where they can go. Do you know
they
what?
don't have to draft the quarterback though.
True, they don't have to draft,
but they do need to make sure they make a pretty big move at quarterback.
They need to make a big move, and it needs to be right. Otherwise, the whole GM, head coach, and everybody, they're gone. Yeah. So there's no building for the future. It's this year or bust. So if it's a young guy that they want, then they have to draft him. I wouldn't like them to give up too much to move. At 3, you can still get at least one of the guys, and if not, you can wait and get Jackson Dart later and then bring in free agent. But
do you not just quickly? Do you not think this is you're giving up at first though? to do this?
No,
I know it's only two
have to give up
spots.
a future first as well. I think when you're
Yeah.
only going down to third, I think you're giving up maybe your second in this draft. But yeah, I don't think you've got to give up multiple firsts to move up 2 spots.
But it's not so much the amount of spots; it's the fact that you're going up to the number 1 spot.
Yeah, if that's a conversation they're having, then I'd rather fish around some of the bigger teams of someone who might want to shift off. I'm not saying this is the guy or anything. I'm just using an example, but I'd be saying, does Kyler Murray want to come over for a couple of firsts? Because I'd rather, I know what he's got and I know what he can do. I'm not saying I want him, but that would make more sense to give up firsts than move up and take a gamble on someone you don't know is going to be good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It's one of them things where it's like, no, it's not a massive move. It's just because you're going up to the number 1 spot normally, and also because they know you're going up for a quarterback as well. So it's almost like you get added tax, don't you, on these moves? It's like it's crazy. So it does feel like it's going to cost a lot to do this. But what I would say is a lot anyway.
We'll see. I think stick at 3. You'll still be good at 3 to get someone. On to pick 2 is the Cleveland Browns taking Abdul Carr from Penn State. Cleveland could also go quarterback here, but the team need to replace Myles Garrett. Now, we've said this in ours. We picked Abdul Carter at this spot as well. It makes sense if Myles Garrett's out, you take the best edge rusher that's available to replace him. He's got a lot of buzz about him. There's a potential he's better than Micah Parsons. Same school, same number, same everything. So this makes perfect sense for them. I have heard that in recent days, because this was done a little while ago now, that apparently Cleveland are 100% no on him going, which I find very bizarre. If you can get a haul and Abdul Carter comes in to replace him.
Well, I heard, I think it was Diana Rossini was on Rich Eisen's show that I saw, and she came out and said that during Radio Row, they were making a really big song and dance about the fact that we are not getting rid of him. He's staying there. He's definitely going to be in Cleveland. And then a few days afterwards, there was obviously another reporter has come out and asked the question again. And they came out and said, he's not going anywhere for now. So it does kind of open it a little bit, I suppose. To me, it doesn't matter. I think you've got Abdul Carter, for me, is the best player in the draft. I think if Myles Garrett isn't there, you go and get him. I think if Myles Garrett is there, you go and put him on the opposite side. So I don't think it matters. This is the guy that the Browns need to get. And given the division they're in, they need a strong defense. So, yeah, I think this is a no-brainer.
I just don't know how you could turn down multiple firsts and seconds probably for Garrett when you need to rebuild on the offense as well. So, yeah, no-brainer. And like you say, equally a good pick if Myles Garrett stays. Tennessee Titans moved down to 3 with the Giants. I know we've had a comment come in from Graham saying Titans also need a quarterback. Why would they want a 2026 first 100%. He also doesn't think Shedeur Sanders is good enough. He's got a round 2 grade on him as well. So he doesn't like that for the Giants. But
see, me and Graham get on, you see. We know what was going on. You don't need you and Joel Klatt. He's not a first round talent. It's sorted.
We'll see. The Tennessee Titans, there you go. They said he stated there they would also need a quarterback. They've moved down to 3, and they're taking Cam Ward, who a lot of people have got them sticking at 1 and taking Cam Ward. So Cam Ward going there, then picking up some more picks by moving down a little bit. Thinks it's a no-brainer. Titans will like Ward. He's a talented player. He said if Carter was still on the board, then he'd have something to think about, maybe going Carter there. But again, a lot of people have posted in Cam Ward going to Tennessee, so makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, they need a quarterback. I know there was a few reports coming out saying that they've decided that this is why they're willing to trade, that they're not really that bothered about the quarterback anymore. But in this circumstance, they do need, and it's difficult to go with Will Levis again. So it kind of makes sense that you're going to want to bring someone in. If this is the guy that they want, which is what there were rumors saying that this was the guy they wanted at the beginning of this process, they've gone and got themselves some more draft capital from the trade, and they've still got the guy that they want. So it kind of makes sense in that respect. So yeah, it's fair enough. I think we're just hearing lots of different rumors at the moment as to what is
Yeah.
going to happen, but it does feel like this wouldn't be the worst idea in the world for them.
I think when you do your first mock draft, like we saw with Daniel Jeremiah and now with Joel Klatt, you kind of got to put in the player that you think is correct for them then, until you hear the buzz of, oh, it's Aaron Rodgers they want, oh, it's Sam Darnold they want, or whatever like that. And then you can do your next mock draft around them, go, nope, they're going to look for free agency. I think your first one, you may as well just lock in. They need a quarterback. This guy fits. There he is. So, yeah, I think that's the right pick for now.
Yeah.
Pick number 4 is the New England Patriots, taking Will Campbell. It's pretty clear that Drake May is the future of the franchise. Now they've got to get better at protecting him. No matter how tempting Travis Hunter is here, considering he could play wide receiver and cornerback. Yeah, we've got Travis Hunter there because there's lots of holes on the Patriots, and we felt locking your corners up and having a guy that can be your wide receiver 2, 3 maybe, and play out the slot, would be able to play both ways if he does that. So it made perfect sense for the landing spot to be the Patriots. But equally, going Will Campbell, I've said if there's anybody you can pick on the O-line that I think will definitely be good somewhere on the O-line, like really good on the O-line for you, it's Will Campbell. So don't mind the pick, protect your young quarterback. They're terrible on O-line, and they do need to protect Drake May. So this makes perfect sense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Will Campbell, as you said, he was really good in college. I think that he seems to be someone who's been overlooked in a lot of mock drafts. So it's quite nice to see him as high as he is in this one. Yeah, I mean, we did go Travis Hunter, but if Travis Hunter is going to predominantly play as a corner, and they've already got Christian Gonzalez, it's not an immediate need for them. Now, I know the idea is to sort of play a bit of wide receiver as well and corner, but this is a very sort of like a logical pick in respect of they need O-line help. I mean, I think, I can't remember, I think we looked at their O-line and you could easily move off 4 out of 5 of them very easily. And so because of that, it makes sense. The only thing that I would say, they've got a ton of money and there's a lot of decent O-line guys going to be out there. So because of that, maybe you don't necessarily need to do this. But I mean, look at, even, I know we're not really talking about the Patriots getting to the Super Bowl or anything like that, but if you look at the Super Bowl and how it worked, that Chiefs O-line just crumbled. You need to have a really strong O-line, and it's something that every team is going to have to look at getting in order to protect their quarterback. So yeah, it's not a bad pick.
I think in terms of time frame, though, you'd say in 4 years' time, you wouldn't be shocked if they were in that conversation. So you're gonna Will Campbell's going to be part of that. You're going to have him for 5 years. So makes sense for the future of going, this is what we need to get better at to compete with those guys. Let's address it now and then pick up other pieces. So yeah, as he says, it's not the sexiest pick, but he's a really solid player. We just went about it a different way. We just addressed it in free agency and went Travis Hunter. But we now see Jacksonville Jaguars taking Colorado's Travis Hunter. Jaguars are going to be really glad if the top 4 picks shake out this way. They were last in passing defense and takeaways last year, recording just 9 takeaways. With the best ball hawking corner in the country right here, the Jags snag Hunter to pair up. You can also pair him up with Brian Thomas on the offense. Yeah, I don't. I really, really like this pick as well. We didn't have him falling this far, but it's the same principle with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We had, it was my pick. We had Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, going here because I said they need to address cornerback outside of Campbell. They've got no one, and they get beat. And it, Joel Klatt states it as well. And again, having someone to complement Brian Thomas on the offense, he doesn't need to be wide receiver one there either. So it's another perfect landing spot for the player and for the team, I believe.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. As you said, Campbell is great at corner for them, and then it just completely drops off. We saw that when they were over here, when they played the Bears over here. We definitely saw that happen. And I think that bringing in someone like Travis Hunter is not only going to be a really, really good corner for you, but kind of has that sort of star potential, which just kind of, it feels like that's something that they need more of in Jacksonville. Although they've got some big, Brian Thomas has done really well, but he is, it's just his first year sort of thing, and he wasn't like the wide receiver one in his class or anything like that. It feels like they've got Josh Hines Allen on the defense, and that's it. Like that's kind that might be unfair, but that's how it feels. And so by having someone in the secondary, maybe someone who is more going to take control as well, like I think Travis Hunter would do, I think that would be really good for them. And maybe they need a few more leaders in that organization in order to really kick on.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The only other thing they need, I think it helps with this, but they need to make sure they're putting more talent around Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, there was talks of him being traded. Maybe that's another guy the Giants could go after with their first if they wanted to give up first. But he says he doesn't want to go anywhere. We've discussed away from the show that he's never really been given any weapons and proper weapons and talent other than Brian Thomas. Which we saw what he did with him. So you've got to give him the guy a chance to live up to the hype that we thought he could be. And Travis Hunter would be another notch in that for them on that offense as well. So helping your quarterback, who you've invested a lot of money in, is definitely sensible in my eyes.
Yeah.
Pick number 6, the Las Vegas Raiders take Michigan's Will Johnson, who we've just spoke about, the cornerback. It's possible that the Raiders will move up for a quarterback, but if coaches have success a certain way, then they typically try to go back to the blueprint. Pete Carroll, had his best years in Seattle all around the defense. Yeah, we always remember that Legion of Boom. Freddie, our host from the main chat show, always talks about that's one of the big things that got him into watching American football and following that. And he had a bit of a soft spot for the Seahawks because of how good that defense was and that secondary was. So I can see that this makes sense with Pete Carroll. It's very logical. Again, they've got holes all over the place as well. Pete Carroll's going to be very defense-minded. You can see him maybe going defensive players, but unless that offense gets better, they're struggling at running back, quarterback, wide receivers got Brock Bowers and then some nice number 2s, but it's not really got a lot going for it on the offense. Do you think defense and going to that blueprint that Pete Carroll likes is where it might go and Joel Klatt's got this right? Or do you think us speculating offense needs to get better, go for it, it is the way forward for them?
Well, I think history does tell you with Pete Carroll that he will go for the defense first. So I suppose in that respect, you can look at it and sort of, put 2 and 2 together and come out with Will Johnson. So in that respect, it does make sense. But the offense desperately needs help.
Desperate.
Quarterback, running back, wide receivers. It needs help on the lot. I mean, Jacoby Myers is solid, and so that's okay. Obviously, Brock Bowers is a kind of like a tight end wide receiver hybrid type of guy. But it really needs help. It's someone like Ted McMillan would be great for them at this position. I've said, when we did ours, Ashton Gentry, I think that would be great as a running back for them. So, yeah, desperately need help on the offense. But given who your new head coach is, it does feel a little bit like that this would be the thing. The corner is a hole for them. They do need help at corner, so getting Will Johnson in would be a good move. But yeah, for me, I feel like this should have one of Ted McMillan or Ashton Genty written all over it for me.
I think once we get closer to the draft after the combine and I think Tetero McMillan is going to get a lot more hype. You believe he should do. I believe he should do. So I think offensive weapons, big shiny piece will get more hype getting closer to the draft, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, see him tested and stuff like that. It always happens, doesn't it, that they get more hype? So yeah.
Pick number 7, the New York Jets take in defensive tackle from Michigan, Mason Graham. The Jets would also seemingly like a quarterback, but I don't think they have the capital to go up there. Aaron Glenn will get the opportunity to draft the second most disruptive defensive player in this draft. Graham's tape is unreal. We've said this when we were talking about players and who's the best player in this draft. We say it's Abdul Carter because of his position, but Mason Graham, talent-wise, you could argue might be the best player. It's just the position isn't as flashy, and he's been heavily part of that Michigan championship team that was incredible. He was the main piece, I believe, on that defense. So I don't mind this pick, but again, maybe it's Aaron Glenn, maybe it's defense, but we said they need to address that offense again. Now, the big rumors are they want to move up to 1 for a quarterback. Joel Klatt doesn't think they've got enough capital to get up there from 7. So maybe that is off the cards for them. But if not, Tetero McMillan here is still on the board. Their defense isn't horrendous. It was one of the things we've been talking about for the last few years with them, that it's a very good defense. And when Salah was there, it produced the goods. It's once he left, it started to fall off of the cliff a little bit. So I think Aaron Glenn could get the best out of the team that's already there, and offense might be the issue.
Yeah, I think you're right. Obviously, Devontae Adams is going to be gone. Alan Lazard is going to be gone. And I know that there's been trade rumours with Garrett Wilson, but I feel like he'll probably stay. But that is all you've got. There's very little else after that, or certainly nothing of note. So it feels like wide receiver, the number one guy here, Ted McMillan, makes sense again for him to go to somewhere like the Jets. I think they've got enough draft capital if they really wanted to move up. I think anyone could do it. It just depends how much they want to give up, doesn't it, in order to be able to do it. But I feel like they could. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, I just think that I kind of get the logic of this, and he's basically alluded to it with Aaron Glenn, new head coach, defensive guy, probably going to want like his captain almost, like his guy to be there. So I could understand why he would want a really great talent like Mason Graham going in there. So it does make a lot of sense in that respect. But yeah, I mean, the defense wasn't shockingly bad, was it? It was okay. I mean, it was very good at the beginning. Salah goes, it became sort of middling, average type defense. So it was all right. But yeah, it's. I feel like it's a certainly if you've got McMillan there, I feel like it's the logical move.
Pick number 8, the Carolina Panthers taking the Georgia linebacker / edge, Jalen Walker. I think this is where some teams might start to consider moving down. However, it'd be tough to find some trade partners because of the relative lack of elite talent in this draft compared to recent years. That's a fair comment. I think before he starts his mock draft, if you listen to it, he says that he thinks, although this might have a lot of depth of players in this draft and you're going to get really good value later on, the high-end elite talent just isn't there. So you can wait in this year's draft and get really, really good value later on. So you might find it hard to trade if you're a little bit later on. But we've got them taking a defensive player in ours. So they need help on on defense. It is right. I don't think Jalen Walker's the right guy. I think that's just a bit of a trying to cover two places with one guy and not getting the best out of the position, and maybe just go for someone who's elite at edge a bit more than Walker, who's a talented player. I think at 8, you can get a lot better talent with what's left on the board.
Yeah, I think we've gone edge in ours, and I think I see it in a lot of mock drafts. The edge is what a lot of people seem to think that the Panthers are going to go. I'm not overly sold on Jalen Walker. I feel like he's kind of he's not either. He's not really a linebacker. He's not really an edge rusher. He's kind of this weird sort of hybrid between the two. And I can't help but feel that whoever takes him may end up. He's either going to be amazing and going to be able to do all of it, or he's not going to be able to do any of it, like to the standard that you really want. And I feel that that's probably more likely to be the case with him.
We've had this hype around people the last couple of years with Walker, who went to the Jags over Aiden Hutchinson. And then we had last year Dallas Turner going over some of the other guys as well. And people look at the how much of an athlete and a specimen like these guys are in terms of what they can produce athletically, and not about what they produced at college at that specific position. And I think people are overlooking pure edge rushers because they're not as athletic, but they're pulling people to the. We've seen what Jared Verse did. Jared Verse, for me, was clearly the best edge in the draft, and people were going, "Oh no, Liatu Latu or Dallas Turner because of athleticism." But we've seen what Jared Verse can do with his strength and power, and I think people need to really go back and look at what works in the NFL from college, and sometimes it isn't these hybrids. They seem to fall short of their hype. I find quite a lot.
Well, we had him going to the Bills, which I feel is probably about right, because you're like at the back end of the first, like that's fair enough. The idea of him being a top 10 pick just feels a little steep for a guy who, in my opinion, isn't really either of the two positions. So yeah, it's a difficult one. But
yes, he's not like Abdul Carter played linebacker, was absolutely incredible at it. Then they moved him down onto the line and realized he was even better there.
Yeah.
So you've got a player there that in your head you go in, I know that he's incredible at those positions. Whereas this is a guy that dabbled in both. He just dabbled in a bit in both. I suppose that's the trouble when you play for Georgia. We've had a lot of guys from Georgia.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of great talent on the team. And sometimes when your defense is stacked with players like that, you look a bit better because there's other people doing their job equally as well, and it makes you look better at your position. So maybe he's got fallen trap of the Georgia syndrome of this, but there's some good players come from there. We're in agreement anyway that it should be edge or D-line.
Yeah. I think edge makes sense for him, definitely.
New Orleans Saints taking another Georgia player, Georgia edge, Michael Williams. The Saints have needs in a lot of areas. New head coach Kellen Moore certainly knows the importance of pass rush after his Eagles team. Obviously. And obviously they had all the Georgia products as well. So makes perfect sense. The guy has all the traits. The guy looks like he should be great at the position. Just a little lack of production from him so far. But I think if you like the traits, then it can translate in the NFL, and that's why people are high on Michael Williams. So Saints, again, another, I think we had them taking edge. They're losing Chase Young, aren't they? So they need to get rid of a lot of people and can't re-sign people, and people should retire as well that are all on that front seven. So getting an edge is important for them, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. They do have a lot of holes. So it's really about where they're going to go. And you got to remember, they can't really do anything in free agency either. They're completely handcuffed by the cap situation. So it's going to be a case of finding the right guy. I'm not sure that Miko Williams is the right guy. I have to say, I think there are other edges that I would be looking at that I think are better than him, and I would rather have than him. I would certainly rather have Mike Green than him. I would rather have James Pearce than him. I don't know. I feel like him and Shamar Stewart could be kind of probably about equal. I'm not overly sold. I think he's good, but I don't know if he's the best one that they could go for. But I can understand why you would want to go for edge, given the amount of holes that they do have there.
Pick number 10 is the Chicago Bears, taking Alabama guard Tyler Booker. The Bears need help in a lot of different areas, but Chicago brought in Ben Johnson for one reason, to get the best out of Caleb Williams. I thought the offensive line, Williams was sacked 68 times. 68 times, third most in NFL history. Wow, I didn't realize he was sacked that many times. Booker plays in the interior. Yeah, they need help at guard. We said this all last year. We went on an American podcast with some guys last year, and even the Bears fan we were on with was like, guard is the problem specifically. So I know it's not a sexy pick. I know he's not maybe the best offensive lineman to take at this point, but he's easily the best guard. So why not take him when they already have a left tackle? So I've got no issues in this pick. I think Booker's fantastic. They need help in that area. So I don't have any problems with this.
No, I think it's the right one for them. It makes sense. There are better O-line guys, I would argue as well, that are out there, but for their specific need that they have, Booker is the one that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, absolutely. I think that is the way forward. And when you think of them offensively, they've pretty much got everything else. You know, they've got the sort of the weapons, they've got the other. I mean, there needs to be more help than just Booker for the O-line. It does need to improve, but this is the real big problem that they have, and so I think that makes a lot of sense for them to go there. I've noticed that Gentry has been mocked a few times to them, and I just feel like I understand it. I get the theory behind it, but I really feel like it's more important that they focus on the O-line here, and you can get yourself a running back later on in the draft.
Well, they've got running backs, and I'm sure free agency they could address more running backs. But I think people are kind of going, Ben Johnson had Monty and Gibbs, so he's obviously going to take a running back straight away in the draft. But equally, Ben Johnson had one of the best O-lines in the league prior to having Monty.
Exactly.
Monty and Gibbs are not Monty and Gibbs without the O-line that Detroit have. So, you know, he knows the importance of O-line and trenches, and getting that right would get the best out of your running backs. Then who did I see? I saw someone say they should get Nick Chubb in free agency, which would give them what? Roschon Johnson, Swift, and Chubb. So, you know, if you've got Chubb and Swift, you've got your Montgomery and Gibbs style players there. So makes perfect sense to do that. I think an O-line would be great. Pick number 11 is the San Francisco 49ers, taking Texas cornerback Jahdae Barron. The 49ers have some free agents in their secondary this offseason. I think the Thorpe Award winner is the best player on the board here. Is a strong fit here. I think when we did ours, I didn't overly think about who might be going in free agency. I think maybe I thought they'd bring people back. I don't know. And I went O-line because I thought future for them. Protect Purdy, get a better run game. Getting old on the O-line. Take best available tackle on the board. But I also understand this pick makes logical sense. He is a fantastic cornerback. So got no issues with the pick. but equally there is free agents out there at cornerback that they could bring in. I do think O-line, they protecting Purdy and getting Christian McCaffrey, if he's back, or whoever it may be at running back, going again is the key to their team. So might be more important.
Yeah, I just had a quick look. They got 4 corners who are free agents, including Ward. So I can understand the theory behind this as to why you'd go there. So it's not the worst pick in the world. But yeah, I remember we were talking O-line, weren't we? And specifically due to the sort of like Trent Williams getting a bit older and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean it does feel like O-line is important for them, but given the amount of free agents they have got at corner, I can't imagine Ward's going to go back. So yeah, I think that kind of makes sense for them to sort of get a bit of help in that position.
There's a fair few talented cornerbacks in this draft, and there's not many talented tackles in this draft. So I think you could wait on cornerback, but to get, we know Banks is still on the board here, would be value for pick.
Yeah, I think, like you say, there's plenty as well, so it makes sense.
Dallas Cowboys at pick 12, taking Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. Yeah, I won't need to read it out because I think everybody's got this pick penciled in, unless you've got him going earlier to the Raiders or something like that, or someone trading up for him. But Cowboys definitely need to address running back. You know, they've made so many errors at that decision point over the last sort of 18 months that if they don't do it, the fans, I think, will start be getting on their back as well. And they need to do something to keep up with the Eagles and the Commanders, who are pushing on now. So they don't want to slip to the bottom of that pack and be fighting out with the Giants maybe. But this makes perfect sense for them, and he's available. So
yeah, it does make a lot of sense. My only question on it is that I think you need O-line and D-line as well. This is a team with many holes. They're not suddenly going to be competing really quickly next year. So it's like there's quite a few holes to this team. Jeanty obviously is the flashy pick, and you kind of feel like would make a lot of sense at the Cowboys. The reason that I bring up the fact they need O-line and D-line is obviously Dak is getting older, so you kind of need a bit of help in order to keep him up. The defense really, really struggled last year as well. Jeanty is not going to suddenly make everything better. It will help, obviously, but it's not going to make everything wonderful. And you've got a running back class that is very, very strong this year. And so it does feel like a bit of a luxury pick for a team that doesn't have the luxury to make it. And so in that respect, it does feel a little bit weird. However, I can understand why it's been done and why everyone is mocking this guy to go here, because literally everyone's going, running back, weren't they like 30th or 31st in the league? They were very poor at running back. Get the best running back. So it's in that respect, it makes sense. But I just feel like there are other moves that they could make.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, and I think your point there of what's available to them later on. Yes, I think Ashton Jeanty's an incredible running back. I thought what he did in college was unbelievable. I've been banging on about him, but you know, he's a little bit smaller than what you'd ideally want for an NFL running back, and I think he's going to have success in the NFL and be good in the NFL. But I also think there's a handful, maybe 3 or 4 other guys that could also be fantastic in the NFL, that are prototype sort of running back height and weight and everything. So you could equally get someone who could be as useful as Jeanty in the next round, and maybe, like you say, get better on the defense, because I think they're losing a lot of edge rush. And we saw last year when they had Parsons was out and Overshown and Lawrence and someone was out, and they were awful on defense. They
Oh.
couldn't stop the run or anything like that. So that could be a key. You don't want that to happen again, because if you're just leaking points through the defense, then your offense hasn't got a chance, even if it's got Genty on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying. It's like you've got them problem. I mean, Zach Martin has just retired, so you know this is your other problem as well that you've got. So I'm not saying that, you know, I mean, you probably wanted Booker really in order to cover that spot, but like there are guys out there, and the running back class is very, very deep this year. So you could get yourself a really good running back in the second round, and especially where the Cowboys are as well in the second round, you could do that. So there is no desperate need to do it, but I understand the logic.
Pick number 13, the Miami Dolphins, taking Alabama linebacker Jared Campbell. The Dolphins have a lot of free agents on the defensively, so I'm giving them a versatile defender. This would be a smart spot for Campbell to land. He moved around at Alabama, but played some more on the outside this past season. He led the Tide in tackles, and he's just a good footballer. We addressed that the Dolphins are going to have lots of people leave on defense for free agency. They haven't got the money to bring any of them back.
Yeah,
I know protecting Tua seems to be the topic when you talk about draft, but when I looked at it, the number of players going on defense, that protecting Tua might have to be a round 2, round 3 job, because they need some big players. I don't think Campbell's the guy. I think you've got another case of trying to put a plaster on several holes with one player here, rather than going after one specific position. I think they're losing too many people in the secondary. So I think Malachi Starks would be perfect here for them over Campbell. But I think this is too early for Campbell as well in terms of position. I think linebacker is not a 13th pick, top 20 pick in this draft.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? That obviously someone like Malachi Starks, who when I look at needs for the Dolphins, I go O-line, because you know it's Tua and he's made of glass. But it is a case of there are a lot of defensive ones. I had safety down as a need rather than linebacker. Now they probably do, you know, they need it at linebacker as well, but I feel like safety is a slightly more pressing issue for them. And so the fact that Malachi Starks is there, that feels like a bit of a no-brainer. Again, as you say with Campbell, maybe it is a case of this guy can play in multiple positions, and so we'll go for him. It doesn't normally work very well. And the other thing you got to remember with the Dolphins is there is an element of they are a team, especially that is very much, when it comes to traits, speed is the key in their mind. And so I do wonder if that is also, like, they're going to like that versatility and that speed and that sort of like attacking threat that Campbell can bring. But yeah, I would think Starks is the way forward. So it's a little bit of a surprise, and I kind of agree. I don't think he should be as high as he is.
Yeah, we were talking off the show the other day about Big Board, and lots of people putting their projections out of Big Board. And I said I didn't want to do one because I find it confuses people a lot and things like that. Malachi Starks was a good example for me, that PFF, who lots of people like to use when it comes to draft stuff of where people are ranked and things like that, had Malachi Starks at the 6th best player overall in this draft. And yet many drafts we go through on Mock the Mock don't have him within the top 15. Are you shocked that you can say someone's the 6th best player, a team has a need at that position, yet they go for a player that I don't think is even in the top 32 of the ranking? So do you find that really difficult?
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? In that respect, it does seem a very strange way of looking at it. But I suppose this is where the versatility is probably outweighing the idea of just having the one guy. So although he's a really good player, but look, we've got this guy, he can do 2 or 3 different positions, so that's even better. sort of thing. So I'm guessing that's the theory behind it. But yeah, I find it surprising that Starks wouldn't be here. I think safety a little bit like linebacker. It's difficult, isn't it? You very rarely see them at the top of these drafts.
Unless
So
they're Kyle Hamilton, yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. But even then, when you think about where the Ravens were back then, you're still talking like what, the 20s or something like that. It feels like this would be quite early for someone of this, this position. And yeah, I think it is probably the wrong guy, I think.
Indianapolis Colts taking Missouri's tackle interior. They've called him an interior offensive lineman on here. Ahmed Membu. The Colts need to reinforce the offensive line to support Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. I think that they have a Ravens-like style team where the quarterback and running back can hurt opponents on the ground. Adding talent to the O-line helps the Colts. Membu would play tackle at Missouri, can play guard at the next level, which we've just said. You're really high on him. I thought he was an absolute beast. I really liked him. Understand this pick. I think when I read that, it makes more sense than anything else to make sure that Jonathan Taylor, even more so, is better and you can get the most out of him, because Richardson, I'm still not fully sold on yet, even as a pure runner either. He's obviously talented at that and he's a big guy and he's quick, but Jonathan Taylor's the main guy for me. And I like those points about saying, the Ravens do a similar thing, which they should be modeling it on a little bit more maybe. So don't mind this pick, got no issues with it. O-line is a problem, but they also need help in the secondary, big time. They also need help on tight end. We said this would be a good point. But I think, yes, Membu's great. I didn't have loads of issues with the Colts O-line. I think it's always been steady. So you've got free agency and later in the draft to address the O-line, and maybe the secondary or tight end might be, because tight end helps the O-line, doesn't it? So it could be the way forward, but no issues with this.
No, I really like Membu. I think he's going to be very good in the NFL. I know what you say when you say there's no issues with it. I suppose in theory, the logic of he will help the running back, he will help Anthony Richardson run the ball. So I understand all of that and get that. That defense struggled big time last year. Really, really struggled. And actually, anywhere I would argue you could get something. The secondary was worse, but I think you could have people on the front as well, which would improve it. But yeah, it feels like the wrong spot. But the one thing I would say about that, when you think you've already had Travis Hunter's gone, Will Johnson's gone, Jody Barron's gone, I'm not sure where you're going. You could go Starks, I suppose, is one that would make sense around there. I'm just thinking, because I wouldn't be like edge you could do, but it's not really something that I feel like they desperately need. So it feels to me that at corner, anyone else would be a little bit rich around this time now.
Maybe, yeah. At 14, yeah.
So I think because of that, I can understand the logic of going for an O-line guy, and Membu would definitely be someone I'd love to have on my team. So why not?
Pick number 15 is edge rusher James Pierce from Tennessee. The Falcons need pass rushing help. They had the second fewest sacks in the league this past season. Before the season, some wondered if Pierce could be the number 1 or 2 pick in this draft. He didn't have a season to be considered one of the top 2 picks, but I still really like him. I'm one of the top players on my big board at this point in the draft. He's got top 5 potential. Now, I said this a lot prior, way before any of this came out, or Joel Klatt started banging on about it. James Pierce was literally the guy that everyone thought this year would be the number one pick in the draft. And he didn't have a down year. He had a down year in terms of his 2 years ago, he was better, but he still was very highly productive and had a lot more sacks than some of the other people that we're going to talk about in this first round. So, yeah, you can say down year for his standards, but still a great year. I'm shocked he's slipping in drafts. I know there's character issues been brought up that we've discussed quite a bit. 15's quite high for him for where I've seen him on other people's mock drafts. So Joel Klatt obviously sees the talent as well. Falcons need an edge rusher. We've got them getting an edge rusher. This is a big pick for them. I think that would be excellent for them.
Yeah, I think right position, right player, right team. Everything's right about it. It's unreal, some of these character issues. It really is, that are being touted out. And I've seen him actually dropping out of the first round, which is mental. And can we not give him to the Eagles, please? Can we just not do that? That would be lovely. Because that's what's going to happen. These things, you get one every year, and it feels like James Pearce is going to be the one this year that he's going to drop down. And there's no real need. He's perfectly good player, and as long as your sort of coaching staff are strong enough to deal with guys who maybe are a little bit more temperamental than others, then what's the problem? So yeah, I think it's the right pick, exactly where he needs to go, and the team desperately needs an edge rusher as well. So it makes sense.
I think if you haven't got on-field issues and locker room issues that are flagging up big time, I think you can let some of these young kids, because that's what they are, young college kids, maybe have a bit of an off-field issue that can, when they get older and they're being paid to play because it's their job now, I think all changes. I think when you're the big guy around campus, maybe there is some, like I'm the best player sort of thing, issues off the field. But that all changes when they move into the NFL. We've seen that with multiple players, and they mature and they understand it better. So I think we can let these kids off if there is some field. And like I say, unless they're just really bad on the field with other players and bad in the locker room, then I'm fine with it. So right pick, right player. Pick 16 is the Arizona Cardinals taking Texas A&M edge Sherman Stewart. The Cardinals also use pass rush help. Stewart might not have had the production some thought he might have as a 5-star recruit, but he'll test well in the draft process. Frame, all good. Senior Bowl, you mentioned it, was great in the Senior Bowl. I think it's the wrong guy from Texas A&M. I think Nick Scornton was better at college than Sherman Stewart. I think he never really ever lived up to production value in terms of sacks, which is what you expect from an edge rusher. But definitely, as he says, he's got the tools to produce the goods, and he's the right size and frame for the NFL. You're higher on him than I am. Cardinals need edge. He is an edge rusher. Lots of people are high on him. I'm probably the anomaly in this conversation. So correct position.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think they need help on that D-line. Well, you can go interior if you want.
I mean, I think they've got quite a few issues, and I feel like O-line is more pressing. Will Hernandez is a free agent. Evan Brown.
They'll bring Will Hernandez back.
Well, I mean, you would hope that would be the case. I mean, but what I'm saying is that they've got quite a few different O-line people that are a problem. But you can go and get them in free agent. There's plenty of them in free agency.
I thought their offense was productive last year. I thought their defense was what let them down.
Yeah, it did let them down a bit. That would make that is fair that was the defense that let them down more. So yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a shockingly bad idea to go edge. I think it's fine. I I'm not sure it's the most important one. I feel like they've got a lot of holes on the O line, and you could have someone like Calvin Banks.
Yeah.
But I think that Stewart is a good choice. He wouldn't be my choice at edge, given the fact that Mike Green's still there. But I can understand why people like him. He's got all the sort of specialist traits that a lot of teams are going to love. So yeah, it's and he had an amazing Senior Bowl as you said. So yeah, I can understand it.
Cincinnati Bengals, pick 17, taking Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. I struggle with leaving the top two ends of the board to this point in the draft. It feels like the Bengals will likely lose T. Higgins in free agency. This was done before all the conversations. Sounds like they're going to do everything to bring him back. They're going to tag him from my hair. Joe Burrow wants to restructure his contract so they can pay him and bring him back. So maybe that's not the case, but equally, regardless, I think they need tight end help. So no issues with them taking Tyler Warren. As we've said plenty of times, he's used in that Brock Bowers type of player. He's not as good, but he's used the same way. I also like the idea of them trading for Kyle Pitts as well, but for a third. But that's just me, and probably only me. I think they're desperate for help on defense. I think if they are bringing T. Higgins back, then that defense was the issue. The offense was on fire quite a lot of the season. Joe Burrow had MVP level year, so your defense was just awful.
Yeah, firstly on the pick, I understand it. I believe this would be an uptick from Mike Gesicki, so I can completely understand why that's the case. Whether T. Higgins is there or not, I could understand why you would want to do this. However, I agree with you. The defense was the problem. I really like Malachi Starks here. I think he would be great for them in the middle of their defense, and there are other places you could go on the D line and in the secondary, but I just think someone like Starks would be great for the Bengals to really kind of have that sort of captain in the middle. I feel like who is it they got rid of? Jesse
Jesse Bates.
I feel like they've never replaced him. And
do you not think that it's Eli Apple going as the
No, I'm pretty good without Eli Apple, I have to say. I feel like Starks would be the replacement for Bates, and that would be the way forward.
Yeah. Defense for me, yeah, anywhere.
Yeah.
The Seahawks at pick 18, taking Texas offensive tackle Kelvin Banks. The Seahawks allowed the fourth most sacks in the league. They did have injuries on the O-line, didn't they? They need more offensive line help. I think regardless of what you look at here, it's O-line or D-line, I think, for them. What does it say? Left tackle Charles Cross. Well, they've got Cross and was it Abraham Lucas, on the other side from the Cougars, I think. So they've got a right tackle and a left tackle. I thought were very, very good. They're very young, but yeah, O line and D line for the Seahawks is fine. And Calvin Banks still being on the board at this point. Now I had a conversation in our group, and I said, at the point I was like, I take the Giants to take Will Campbell, and someone said the first tackle off the board. I went, yes, it's Will Campbell, and everyone went, no, Calvin Banks. Everyone says it's Calvin Banks, and now all of a sudden Calvin Banks is at 18 on people's draft board. So again, another shocker that he can go from being thought of as the number one tackle to he's out in the second half of the draft.
Yeah, I mean that's just what happens, isn't it? In drafts, they move up and down so fluidly. But yeah, I think it's the right position. It's who they need. It's O-line, D-line, and Calvin Banks is a great pick to have. So yeah, there's not a lot to say about it. The Seahawks are O-line, D-line, and that's it.
Pick 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Arizona wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan. Chris Godwin suffers a national ankle injury and is going into free agency. Mike Evans is turning 32, and I'm sure he pretty much says, like everyone does, that Tetairoa McMillan is the next Mike Evans. So they go and get themselves the next Mike Evans to pair up with Mike Evans. Would be a dream come true if he's still at 19.
Yeah, I mean it would be wonderful for the Bucks if this happened. It's not going to. I'm pretty confident he will not be there at 19. I will be very surprised if he's not a top 10 pick. You've got teams like the Patriots, the Jags, the Raiders, the Jets,
The Cowboys, maybe.
Cowboys. Who else might go for him? I mean, if one of them, if T Higgins did go, the Bengals, there's lots of teams here that could go for him, and I would be very, very surprised if he was still here. I've pretty much had edge for the Bucks.
We have edge.
Yeah, that kind of feels like the most logical thing for them. Obviously,
edge or if your Jalen Walker's available at this point, I think linebacker edge would be.
Yeah, that would probably be about right for him. That would be okay. But yeah, for me, edge, I just feel is the obvious way. I can't believe it'll be here.
Yeah, so you don't think he'll be here. I don't think he'll be there. Joel Klatt's got him there. And in Daniel Jeremiah's second mock draft that he's done, has him going here as well. And I believe in his first one, he's got him higher. So very odd that seems to be the trend. Is it just like one of those things where people have got in their head the Mike Evans connection and gone, we're just going to keep putting him in there until it becomes a thing?
I mean, it makes sense. Like it does make a lot of sense, but I don't see it. And also now, I mean, they talk about Chris Godwin coming back, that they're going to try and get him back in there. They've got Jalen McMillan, of course, which is going to be a nightmare for fantasy if you have two McMillans on the same team. I mean, Jesus. But you've got Jalen McMillan as well, and so is wide receiver really? I get the theory with Mike Evans, but is it such a massive issue for him? I think that edge is more important.
I agree. Pick 20, the Denver Broncos taking Michigan tight end Colston Loveland. Again, this is another pick that we've seen locked in quite a lot from everybody. I think he states in there that this is a player that we've seen Sean Payton have. He likens him to Jimmy Graham, who was there. Bo Nix does need some help with some more offensive weapons. They were good on defense. Their offense was good. I think running back and tight end is probably where they need to address. And Colston Loveland, for me, is probably the best pure tight end in the draft. So,
yeah, it's running back, wide receiver, tight end, isn't it? It is what the Broncos really need to address here. As you said, really good defense, so they don't really need to worry about that. So yeah, really, really like Colston Loveland here. Makes a lot of sense, and I think the Broncos, and you're going to see it with the Chargers as well. I think the theory is not necessarily be a complete copycat of the Chiefs, but I think there is that theory of getting a really good tight end seems to be the new way to do it. And I feel like that's only really happened since Kelsey's been like amazing. And now quite a few teams are looking at that going, I mean, obviously you had Gronk as well, like for the Patriots.
I talked about this. It was this time last year I spoke about this, didn't I? And I said, like, look at the teams that have won the Super Bowl in the last sort of. And I was like, it was or every single team, or even if you look, I even got it down to look at the teams that qualified for like the Final Four. And they had like Laporta and Kittle and Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. And I was like, if you've got a player that's really, really talented over the middle and big and tall and strong, it seems like they're the teams that are getting far in the Super Bowl through the playoffs. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Pick number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden. I'll be honest, I have no idea where the Steelers should go. They could do with help at many positions. Who knows what they'll do at quarterback, but they need another wide receiver. Golden really made the most of his 1 year at Texas. Some huge plays in the CFP to help the Longhorns reach the semifinals. I said I feel like this guy's getting a lot of bias of how good he was at the back end of the year for Texas. Yes, he was absolutely fantastic. Yes, he was great in the playoffs against all the best teams. But I feel like there's better wide receivers within this draft than Golden. I think Steelers need a wide receiver. I think Burden would be better, would complement Pickens well. I think Egbuka would be better, best route runner in the draft. Golden, I've got a bit more of a round 2 grade on him. I haven't got a first round grade on him, but I understand the hype with how good he was at the back end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think it's the right position that they need to go for. I felt like they needed to do it last year, before the trade deadline. That if they were really going to kick on in the playoffs, and they never really did it, and they just sort of like didn't really get very far. I think Egbuka. Personally, I think Egbuka would be a better choice for them over Burden myself, just purely because I think it's very different to George Pickens. So I think that would be what you would want to see. But yeah, I'm not really. I think Golden, he did have a good year, but it's literally like, I mean, what else did he do during his college time? And there wasn't a lot there. So it's the right position, wrong guy for me.
Yeah, and you got to remember he also come out a year early as well from college. So I think Golden's really taken the opportunity to capitalize on how good he was at the back end of the year and gone, I'll come out early. Don't want to stay another year and not be as good and then not get picked. Pick 22, the Los Angeles Chargers taking Michigan defensive tackle Ken Grant. Jim Harbaugh taking a former Wolverine. O-line, D-line, it's something that Harbaugh bangs on about. Something he did last year. He said, I don't want any of the flashy picks. Give me the best tackle. This year, he's saying, I don't want any flashy picks. I'll have the best defensive tackle that's available now. And he worked with him at that point. So Jesse Minter as well was his coordinator at Michigan as well. So makes sense for the Chargers, but at some point, they've got to address wide receiver, running back, tight end. I know tight ends are all gone now, but some point they've got to address wide receiver. Maybe DK Metcalf goes there. There's a lot of talk about that. Maybe they bring back J.K. Dobbins and bring in someone in free agency, or pick one of the guys later on. So this could be a great pick for them. I don't know whether it says they need some help. Do they need some help in the... Doesn't overly say they need help building D-line.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is a position that they desperately need help at. The defense was pretty good. I think edge they could do with a little bit of help at, but it's not something that they're desperate for. I get that he would probably like his guy from Michigan, so that's a fair enough. I understand the logic of that. They as you said, desperately need to sort out running back, wide receiver, tight end, exactly the same as the Broncos. It's funny because they're both in the same division that this has happened, but they're quite close to each other as well. But they both desperately need to sort these 3 sort of like skill positions out. Obviously, with Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland gone, you're not going to go tight end here, but you could go Amari and Hampton at running back. That would make a lot of sense here. You could go for Egbuka here at wide receiver. That would make a lot of sense here. Or Luther Burden as well. Either one would work. And I feel like as wonderful as it would be to have his guy, I'm not sure it's the most important thing for this Chargers team. It needs to improve offensively.
Yeah, and I think there's the perfect guy for them at this position as well. I think when we talk about those running backs and how they are and how good they are, there is quite a lot of them that maybe work really, really well in a committee backfield. Whereas Amari and Hampton, he's an every down back, down back bruiser, perfect for the Chargers. He's got Chargers written all over him. So I find it hard for maybe Harbaugh to go, I'll pass on that guy, because that fits his ethos as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, you could go for, I think Travion Henderson's going to be great. I think Quinton Judkins and Caleb Johnson are going to be great, but they may work a bit better in committee backfield, whereas Hampton, we saw him do at UNC. He was all their offense, so he can be all the offense for the Chargers as well. So I just find it hard to believe that they wouldn't take a guy that's perfect for them, because he won't be there come the next pick.
No.
The Green Bay your Green Bay Packers. He's taken Oregon offensive tackle Josh Connolly. After addressing the offensive line in the first round last year, the Packers continue to bolster their offensive line here. I don't really need to carry on. We all know O-line, D-line for your Packers. There's no more cornerbacks worthy of being taken here. So O-line or D-line? I think there's better talent left on the board at D-line currently, but equally, Connolly is value at his position as well.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're going to go for O-line, D-line, I think Connolly's a good choice. I've got no problem with it. It's what we always do. We're not going to change that.
If I told you that Walter Nolan's still on the board, would that change your mind?
It would a little bit. Yeah, I would quite like Walter Nolan. He would be pretty good. So he would be great. If you told me that Mike Green was still on the board,
yeah,
he would be amazing. But yeah, O-line, it's what we're going to do. I've just made peace with it now. It's O-line, D-line. And Josh Connolly's not a bad O-line guy. So, yeah.
And when you look at your team, it's very young on offense, and it's got a lot of talent on offense. And Jordan Love is the future now. And I think Josh Jacobs has done enough to say that he is part of that future as well, with how good he was. So making sure you get the best out of him, I think is key to you winning games. So, yeah, you say protect the quarterback. I say protect the running back as well. So, I think that it makes sense for you. You know, your defense is good. It just needs help. But, yeah, making sure you outscore those teams is key for you. So,
yeah.
Minnesota Vikings. Oh, they've gone D-line. Minnesota Vikings taking Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon at 24. Couple of ducks in a row here. Harmon led the interior defenders in quarterback pressures. 55 this past season, recorded 12 more than anyone else. Harmon, an interior twitchy defensive lineman. Yeah, he's a really good talent. I would say that maybe the teams he went up against weren't as fantastic as maybe some of the other bigger guys that we've seen, the SEC guys were over his time, but I really like him. He is a very, very extremely good talent. Vikings, you said you went help on D-line. I think, D-line or safety here is fine. I also think, Connolly's gone now. Josh Simmons is still, they don't need it'd be interior. They need help on O-line maybe. D-line is where we went.
Yeah, I like it. I personally, I'd rather have Walter Nolan there, but I mean, that's just me. But I think Derek Harmon's a good one. I know a lot of people go on about the age and stuff, but if he's good enough, so what? And I think it's something that they do need. I think that defense was given a lot of credit, but I don't think it was quite as good as what everyone was banging on about. So, and we saw that, didn't we, straight away in the playoffs when they got knocked out. So, yeah, I think it's a good move, and I think it's important for the Vikings actually to keep building that defense. I think the offense has got a lot of talent on it already, so it's important to keep going on that side of the ball.
Pick number 25, the Houston Texans taking Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. Again, this is another pick. I won't read it out because everybody has got this pick just about, pairing CJ Stroud up back with Emeka Egbuka. They've lost Tank Dell for another year. Diggs is probably out in free agency. Leaves them with just Nico Collins. Why not give him one of his best mates back?
Yeah, makes sense. Definitely the one that they want. And if he's there, brilliant. And yeah, they need help at the position. So great.
Pick number 26 is the Los Angeles Rams, taking Ohio State, another Ohio State player. Josh Simmons, the tackle. We had this pick. I think we had the exact same player at the same pick. I think we even had the exact same reason as well of people they were losing. So Joel Klatt's on the same page here with us on that one.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. They need to look at the O-line. The only other thing I would say is corner, but the main guys are gone. But O-line makes the most sense for them. So Josh Simmons, he got hurt, didn't he? As he said. So that's why I think he's probably slipped down the board a bit here. But he was very, very good.
It's a shame because without that injury, people will be talking about him towards the top half of this draft, I believe. They're saying he's going to be back ready for the combine, which is obviously next week. So they're saying he's going to be fit back then. I'm not sure how much he's going to do, but so he's definitely going to be back before the start of the season to full health. So there's no reason to have any question marks on him too much in terms of injury. So yeah, he slipped and someone's going to get great value. Why not be the Rams? 27, the Baltimore Ravens taking another Ohio State player, Ohio State interior guard, Donovan Jackson, the left side of the Ravens offensive line, Ronnie Stanley and Patrick Macari, a pair of free agents. I think there's more than that are free agents on the O-line as well. I think they've just addressed that that's just the left side. But we said this is a team that wants to run the ball, needs to run the ball. We had this earlier in the draft when someone said they wanted to play Ravens-style football. They need to address the O-line. So, yeah, surely the Ravens then need to address the O-line. Got no issue with that. Donovan Jackson, I don't know if it says it in the little write-up. He played guard for virtually his whole time there, and he was one of the best guards in football. We had the injury to Josh Simmons, and he moved to tackle. And I was really, really impressed with how he played because the period that he played some big teams down that stretch and against some, when they played Michigan and he had to go up against some of the big players. When he played Penn State and he's gone up against Abdul Carter, we're talking he played these guys that were at the top of the draft and he held his own and played well. So that really, really impressed with me with the fact that he moved outside and really held his own. So top quality talent in this guy. I've not had a first round grade on him just because of where he played position wise, but he's the best player for the Baltimore Ravens to take probably.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. The run is key, obviously, with Derrick Henry, and so you need, and Lamar Jackson as well. So you need your O-line to be as strong as possible. They've got a couple of really big holes here in Macari and Stanley. And as you said, there's more depth as well that they're going to lose at the position. So it's really important that they do go here. I don't really know a lot about Donovan Jackson. I haven't really seen much tape on him, but I know that we had it down as O-line, and so it does make a lot of sense for them to go there. So yeah, I get why he's gone there.
I think it speaks really highly of a team that's full of 5-star recruits and had other, you've got your right tackle that they could have moved to left tackle. They've got younger freshmen and juniors are waiting to come in to replace Simmons, but they didn't, and they went with Jackson. They moved him from guard. I think that just shows the level of how much he gets the O-line and how clever he is, and the quality of the player to be able to make that move. So definitely one to go and watch some tape on, because if he doesn't go in the first round and Klatt's not right about this, you might want to keep an eye out on him and where he goes, because I think he's extremely talented. Pick number 28, the Detroit Lions taking Marshall edge rusher, your guy, Mike Green. Well, I wanted to give the Lions, he says, Jack Sawyer, which I would give him 4 Buckeyes in a row. Yes, Sawyer really seems like a Dan Campbell guy. Why has he not gone Jack Sawyer? If he picks either Jack Sawyer or Mike Green here, I think it's the right pick. I think Mike Green's going to play with a bit of a chip on his shoulder from a smaller school, hasn't got the buzz from some of the other people within drafting because of that, but highly productive, played really well. It says he played a game against Ohio State. It's about the only big game he played. And
I'll be thrilled that he's gone to the Lions. Great.
You know, your guy going to the Packers when you could have taken him earlier. Oh, yeah. But equally, you don't want him taking Jack Sawyer either. So lose for you, but win for the Lions.
Yeah, I think it's the right position. You could argue O-line, but I think given who's there, edge, I think is the way forward here for them. We saw that defensively they did struggle a bit, especially when Aiden Hutchinson went down. But to have Aiden Hutchinson on one side and Mike Green on the other would be great for them. So, yeah, I'm completely in agreement with the position. Just don't give them Mike Green, for God's sake.
Well, you want them to have Jack Sawyer?
Yeah, they can have Jack Sawyer. I don't want them to have Mike Green. No.
Okay. Well, they had loads of injuries at the back of the year, and they were literally pulling people like I think at one point they were ringing Keanu Reeves to ask him who was in the replacements to see if they had players available to play on that defense. So, they definitely need depth, even if that's the case. Pick 29, the Washington Commanders taking South Carolina safety Nick Manaware. The Commanders need to address the defense as they saw in the NFC Championship game. I think they make a play for Myles Garrett. He thinks Myles Garrett's in play for them. And I like Manaware here at Washington. He's the best run-stopping safety in the draft. I like Nick Manaware as well, but I've got him in the second round. I haven't quite got him going in the first. They need help at wide receiver. They desperately need help on wide receiver because I think De'Ami Brown might be going. You said he's not a free agent, but I keep seeing him being traded elsewhere or on other teams next year. And Terry McLaurin's 29. So wide receiver here, there's still Luther Burden's still in play, who would complement Terry McLaurin very well in their style of play. And the defense was good last year, and there's safety still to be had a little bit later on as well. So I wouldn't go safety here. I go wide receiver, and if not, maybe there's still talent at D-line left on the board.
Well, it's interesting because under team needs, I've got wide receiver, offensive tackle, edge, and corner. Yeah. So I feel like this one's a little bit of a strange one. I don't see it as a major need for them, but I think it's probably something that they might want to go for.
Do you think Joel Klatt watched the championship game, really addressed that thing as a big issue there and then, and went, that's
possibly? I mean, you never know, but I just feel like it's not a massive need for them. Also, if they got Myles Garrett, they're not having this pick.
No, yeah, surely that's in the deal.
Yeah, it's got to be, surely. So that's not going to work. But I mean, we had edge for them, so I feel like it's edge or wide receiver. If they don't get Garrett, then it's edge. But yeah, I mean, Luther Burden sitting there feels a little obvious.
Pick 30, the Buffalo Bills taking Ole Miss. Finally, we've mentioned him a few times, taking tackle Walter Nolan. The Eagles laid out the blueprint for the Bills to take down the Chiefs. Nolan helps fill that blueprint and getting pressure up the middle. I think he mentions when he talks about it, them also being a team that's in play for Myles Garrett. Walter Nolan makes perfect sense if he's available for them. Because they're aging at that defensive tackle position, aren't they? So they're going to need some help in there. Walter Nolan is massive disruptive player, absolutely fantastic. Good pick.
Yeah, D-line. To be honest, anywhere on the defense, I think would be a benefit for them. So yeah, I think offensively, you could argue they might need a wide receiver if you decide not to bring back Amari Cooper. But I feel like D-line's more important. Walter Nolan should have gone ages ago, and yeah, I think it'd be great for him.
Pick 31, the Kansas City Chiefs taking.
Now, there's no need to be rude about them, is there?
Defensive tackle Dion Walker. What we got? Chris Jones, defensive tackle under contract. Really like Walker's game. Could do with some help in the trenches. Yeah, they could do with some help in the trenches, but maybe on the other side of the ball. Maybe on the O-line. Equally, no issues with them going. You know, with the Chiefs, it's always a luxury pick in some form of way. But I think what we saw, they've got to go O-line, haven't they?
I think they have to go O-line. I do not have this guy as a first-round pick at all. I barely have him as a second-round pick, to be brutally honest. I'm not a massive fan. I don't want to go too much into it because we haven't done the defensive tackle class yet, but I don't really have him as someone amazing, and I just don't. I think they need help on the O-line. I don't see the reason for needing this one.
Yeah, I think it's O-line for me as well. Pick 32, the final pick in the draft is Philadelphia Eagles taking Boston College edge Donovan Ezra-Rakari.
Well, this isn't going to happen, is it? Because he only bloody drafts SEC guys now, and they're all Georgia and that lot. So,
yeah, I found this pick very odd. I don't think you see many people with this name on their board in the first round. I think he's just, free agent decision, linebacker Zach Bourne, edge rusher Josh Sweat. We know there's loads of players going out on that defense at the front seven position, various names going away. Productive 2024, 16 and a half sacks. Yeah, they were loads better. Was good at the Senior Bowl. They were loads better this year. Big turnaround there at Boston College. Can't see this being the pick.
I think it's the right position.
Yeah, we've got JT Tulimuau going there for him.
Yeah.
Have we seen Jack Sawyer go?
No.
No, so we didn't see Jack Sawyer go, but he wanted the Lions to take Jack Sawyer, but doesn't have him, and you've got an edge rusher going here. So why are they not taking Jack Sawyer? Very odd.
Yeah. I think this would make sense for him at this, but I think edge is the right position, as he says. Josh Sweat's going to be going. They need to replace him. Edge makes sense. Jack Sawyer's around. Here do. Not this guy.
Yeah, Burks and Milton Williams are both free agents as well. So yeah, to bring in someone at that position would be big. So yeah. Well, that's Joel Klatt. I think I said this to you the first time I read it. He's very, very logical, and everything you can kind of look at and go, yeah, it makes sense, but maybe not the right player, the right pick, or what's going to happen.
I think a lot of the positions are right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd be very interested to see what he's saying closer to the draft after he's got a bit more buzz and feel for the free agents and things like that. And I think if you are someone who follows draft, I think this is one to look at if you want to know his take on the players, because he knows the players better than anyone else because he reports on the games every week. He's there at them. So that is Joel Klatt's mock. Adam, we've got another one coming up next week. We've got our player profiles that will be starting to be released. Our mock draft is out and online to go and take a look at. See, you can go mock ours and let us know your feedback on that. But yeah, combine next week now.
Yeah.
Free agency following week. It's all kicking off. It's all good. keep your eyes peeled. But till then, keep with the franchise tag and see you again very soon.